Welcome to the Football365 Isolation Show, Episode 3. I am your host, Mark Smith. Hello. And I'm joined as ever by Sarah Winterburn. Sarah, how are you?
I'm all the better for seeing your face, Mark. It's only the third one I've seen all week.
It's more than enough face for anybody.
Yeah, more than enough hair. Really enjoying the moustache.
It's good. Thank you. Yeah, likewise. Today, Sarah, we're not doing an 11. Instead, we're doing some mailbox replies. We've had lots and lots of people writing in to football365.com. You can get in contact with us. It's what is it? It's the editor at football365.com, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
The editor at football365.com. Let us know your thoughts on anything, really, because it is your input that really drives these shows at the moment. And we'll start with one from, you'll be impressed by this, Sarah. This is from a man called Professor Yeboah, David Yeboah, from Australia.
I don't know what I'm more excited about, that a professor reads the mailbox.
That's the calibre.
Do you think it's the Yeboah?
No, it's David
just
Yeboah.
A Yeboah.
Yeah, I don't think it's our guy Yeboah.
Professor though.
But Professor, that's the sort of calibre of clientele that we have now at Football 365.
Wow. We are
very impressed.
We're a class above, aren't we?
We really are, yeah. And Professor Yeboah is talking about that age-old subject. No matter what's happening in football, you'll always get this. It's transfer speculation.
Right.
And it's something that football could be cancelled for 5 years and would still be speculating on transfers.
Oh, we'd still be talking about £400 million mega moves for 6 players, wouldn't we? That and long may it continue.
Absolutely. It's the one constant that we have in modern football.
Even if they literally said there's no football for 10 years, we would still be talking about this.
We'd still find an angle on it.
How much will Man United pay for the 47-year-old Jadon Sancho?
Yeah, actually, this is exactly what Yeboah's talk. I keep calling Yeboah like he's a mate of mine. Professor Yeboah. He worked hard for that title. I'm not going to ignore it.
You give him his dues.
Yeah, Professor Yeboah actually brings up Jadon Sancho. He says, and the letter is titled "Would You Rather?" He says, reading about the discussion on which forward Man United should sign, Kane or Sancho, I thought the choice was very clear: Jadon Sancho. Kane is an outstanding player, so then why Sancho? He says, first comes the price tag, with Kane potentially costing twice as much as Sancho. Then comes overall talent, contribution. He goes on a bit. Then at the end he says, to me, there's no debate. The savings from signing Sancho instead of Kane would be spent on Koulibaly or a central midfielder. So he goes a bit Football Manager at the end there. But it's a pretty straightforward question, really, this one. Kane or Sancho, and why?
I think he probably could have answered it in about 4 words, which is like Sancho obs.
Is it that cut and dried for you?
To me, it is. I think with the price tag that Harry Kane comes with, if we're assuming that £200 million price tag is is the right price tag and the one that Daniel Levy's settled upon, even if it's 150 million, I think that's a hell of a lot of money for a player who probably hasn't got a great deal of resale value at the end of sort of 2 or 3 years. So you're basically writing off that money. Yeah. Now, if Harry Kane, if we thought that Harry Kane was going to score 30 goals a season, for the next 3 or 4 years, then that's probably a no-brainer in itself, because you're looking at a Robin van Persie situation where you can turn a contender into not quite a contender, but you could bring them up.
An outsider into a contender,
into a contender. But we're not talking about that with Harry Kane anymore. We've seen his numbers in terms of his goals, but also in terms of his appearances sort of peak before sort of 2018 and then drop since then. He's basically played about a season of football within the last sort of 18 months, which is not enough if you're paying that kind of money.
No.
I'm not saying he isn't a great player, but also this idea that he's still to reach his peak, or he's at his peak, seems a bit ridiculous to me.
Do you think he has peaked?
I think he has peaked, and also he's coming towards 27, which to me certainly sounds like it's a youngster basically. I can barely remember 27, but to a footballer, you can be over the hill at that point. We only have to think about Michael Owen. When I looked it up, it really surprised me to realise that he joined Newcastle at 26. Now,
did he?
Newcastle to me is the end of Michael Owen's career.
Yeah, in my head,
kind
he's
of a
at
bit
least
of a busted
30,
flush
31.
at that point. Yeah, he's a bit of a busted flush, or we think he is. And then you look back and realise, actually, no wonder Newcastle were excited about this. No wonder there was like 40,000 people in St James's Park just watching him do kick-ups. Because they thought they were getting peak Michael Owen, and actually we all know now he was very much on his way down. And I think obviously part of that was that Owen's game was based on pace, and when that went a little bit, the rest of his game followed. But Kane's game has to be built on sort of stamina, and he doesn't have that anymore. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and I can't see him playing 38 games in a Premier League season, or even much more than 30. He's a kind of player who's always come back too quick. He's always every time he's got injured, he's rushed back to score. He always wanted that thing when he rushed back to try and win the Golden Boot a couple of years ago from because Mo Salah was ahead of him, and it was like just coming back and taking sort of 20 shots a game because he was desperate to score those goals. And you'll always get that from him. And to me, that means that if you're looking at £150 million plus, or God forbid 200 million, you don't buy Harry Kane. You buy Jadon Sancho for less money than that. And he's
one of the issues for Kane seems to be that he's played under managers that either are desperate to play him 90 minutes every single week that he's fit, and also combined with the idea that they don't necessarily want a secondary striker to back him up so they can rest him. So he plays every minute until he can't, rather than get those weeks rest.
Champions League final was obviously the example of that, wasn't it? I mean, anyone in their right mind looks at that and says, Lucas Moura is taking you there. What on earth are you doing playing Harry Kane?
Don't play a half-fit Harry Kane.
He's not fit. This is, against the Liverpool side who give you no time on the ball whatsoever. The best pressing side in the world. You're going to play the guy who's at half pace. Now, he didn't particularly have a bad Champions League final, but he didn't have a great Champions League final, and nor did anybody in that Spurs team. But like you say, Pochettino has built his team around him and didn't buy players to play, to push him. And I can understand why he didn't, and I understand why a lot of players wouldn't join the club like that. You're coming to be second choice, aren't you?
Well, they tried it with Llorente. Llorente, I think, was supposed to be be that but he just wasn't up to the level. There was no way you could, in good faith.
You weren't ever looking at it and going, and saying, no. It was never Kane or Llorente. It was Llorente if Kane was injured, and Van Vincent Janssen before that was an even worse example of buying someone to be a backup. It's hard to get a good striker to be the backup to Harry Kane, obviously.
Absolutely.
It means that he has been worked into the ground, and I think we've seen the best of him.
Yeah, I think you might be right. I think there's another thing with Harry Kane at that sort of price, and I hate talking about football in these terms, but if you're going to spend 150, 200 million pounds on a player in modern football, you need someone that's going to be a huge boon for the club in terms of media profile. And I hate talking about it like that, but there's a reason Pogba went for so much money. It wasn't just that he's the player that he is, it's that he attracts so much attention globally. Kids buy his shirts. Everything at the superstore would have been Pogba related. Now Kane is a top player, but he hasn't got that X factor that a Neymar, Ronaldo, a Messi, one of those guys have.
Nowhere near. And there's a chance with Sancho that he could be that player.
Yeah.
Because he has that he can get into that youth market in the way that Harry Kane, there's no 15-year-old in the world who looks at Harry Kane and wants to be Harry Kane. It's, they might admire him, but he's not got that, he's not got any, he's not got any
not sexy enough.
No, he's not going to do a sexy TikTok, is he?
Not yet, but if he's injured for much longer, then he might have no option. Put his knee out, doing a TikTok. And that's the next football headline. Young player does his knee doing a TikTok.
Right, anyway, let's move on to TikTok shock.
That's why the editor for a reason. Sancho, though, I mean, we haven't only sort of really touched upon him, but he is someone who, like you say, he could be the next generation. Obviously, a different position to Harry Kane, but in terms of profile and in terms of what Solskjaer seems to be going for, which is this younger addition to the squad. I think he probably does make a bit more sense, doesn't he?
He ticks every box, doesn't he? He's young, he's English, he's hungry, he's desperate to be sort of one of the best players in the world, or right up there. And you don't get many English players who are sort of nakedly ambitious like that, and it's actually quite nice to see. And he does have, even if it goes wrong at Man United, and Man United don't challenge in the way that Man United want to challenge. If Jadon Sancho does well, 2 or 3 years' time, he's worth even more. He has resale value. That if he's very good for 2 or 3 years, Real Madrid or Barcelona will be in for him, and they'll double. Well,
he's got at least 2 big moves after this one.
Absolutely, which is the right, fits in with the Man United thing now, isn't it? Because in theory they could yet, sell on you Daniel James or Aaron Wan-Bissaka and players like that. If this great project doesn't turn out the way that they want to turn out. Harry Kane's a different one, isn't it? Harry Kane's a sort of boom or bust one. It's either going to win you the title or you've just lost
in the next 3 years, or you've.
Yeah,
that's right. Is there anything in Sancho wanting to get one over on his old club, Man City, or am I looking into that too much?
I think there might. He's human. That's what you would be, isn't it? People forget he left City at a very young age because, he turned down contracts. It wasn't that City sort of gave up on him. City didn't say they didn't want him. City said, right, you will have to wait like everybody else, but here's a contract in the meantime. He didn't want to be Phil Foden. He didn't want to sit and wait and he knew that he could get football somewhere else. And good on him for doing that. I'm a massive sort of fan of players who go out of the comfort zone and end up in Germany or wherever. 18 years old, that's not the easiest thing in the world to do, is it?
It's a brave decision, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
When you don't speak the language and the culture is different, I think it's very refreshing for a young English player. Because for whatever reason, we don't do it.
Yeah, and to utterly succeed as well. Yeah. Not to, we've seen plenty of players go over there who've had a go at it and it's not quite worked out, but he has been an absolute smash, hasn't he, for Dortmund? What an investment they made there.
And you see no issue with him slotting into the Premier League?
Oh, no, none at all. I mean, we've seen him for England, haven't we? In this sort of Premier League era when a lot of those sort of, the 4-3-3 era or the 4-2-3-1 era where, your wingers as goal scorers, that's his thing, isn't it? He's exactly, he's Raheem Sterling on the other side, isn't he?
Yeah, I agree.
Possibly even better. He will entirely fit in with this. He could score 15 goals a season and make 20, which is the kind of form he's in Germany.
Yeah. Right, moving on to our second mailbox. Thank you, by the way, to Professor Yeboah for that one. I'll skip saying his name.
I'm only listening to this one if it's from a doctor, a professor, or a flight lieutenant.
This one's mysterious. It just says it's from Andrew. No more information, just Andrew.
I'm already not quite listening, to be honest.
Unless you're like an incredibly famous pop star, you can't have one name. Definitely not Andrew. Anyway.
There isn't a famous pop star called Andrew, is there?
Andrew Ridgeley.
Yeah, exactly.
One for the kids. Ndombele and Jordan Henderson is the title of his email. I'll skip through the first bit. I'll land on this bit instead. He says, the Premier League is basically built on players running around like nutters. Pochettino and Klopp's success is built on this, and Guardiola has realised it too. The high press is built on forwards running around like nutters, again. So that's what it takes to survive. Blah, 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 blah. His point is that Ndombele might be a fantastic footballer, but he's a funny shape. Funny shape. So there's something of Jordan Henderson about him, who underperformed for years. It's taken Henderson 10 years to be a great footballer. Basically, Andrew's getting on to the point that Ndombele has really struggled this first season, but actually, Jordan Henderson did it first as well. And look at him now. It's taken him a long time. Why wouldn't it take a player a bit of time to adjust? And it got me thinking, first of all, about Ndombele's first season here, which I want you to talk about in a minute.
And his shape.
We can go to his shape if you like. But mainly about other footballers who became Premier League greats who also had difficult first seasons. I think it's just very tempting to write these players off, particularly when they are club record signings like Ndombele. Talk to me, though, Sarah Winterburn, about Ndombele, what you make of him, what you make of his shape. Can he improve? Is he worth sticking with?
Well, there were moments, weren't they, when he first came in, when you kind of went, oh, this is it. This is what they're looking for. They'd lost Ndombele, who is the most beautiful midfield player in terms of, his power and his grace. I'm not saying Ndombele's in the same class, but he threatened to bring what they were missing from him, which is that kind of ability to carry the ball forward, but also kind of be strong and all those things in a complete midfielder that we like to talk about, But unfortunately, those moments have been few and far between. And I think the problem with the Henderson comparison that Andrew has made, is that there was never a sort of question about Jordan Henderson's application. If you're talking about Premier League being a place where people run around like nutters, well, Jordan Henderson is Mr. Run around like a nutter. Even when he wasn't working at Liverpool, it was considered that he wasn't the right kind of class, or he didn't have the right kind of, he didn't have that touch of genius or whatever, especially coming in sort of to replace Steven Gerrard. But he did have that sort of will to run and run and run. Now, the problem with Ndombele is, and in this era of sort of Twitter where everything, everything is a meme, everything is a gif, everything is reproduced millions of times. There's been a few examples of Ndombele looking like he doesn't give a shit, and not chasing back, not marking, not doing the pressing. And that's the thing that people really struggle with, I think. And it's very easy then to write someone off and say, well, he doesn't give a shit. He can go. What a flop.
It seems a lot easier to take a Jordan Henderson who's happy to run all day long and refine that and get him to do that in the right areas than it is to get someone like Ndombele, who, like you say, often looks like he doesn't really care, to get that impetus behind him. But Ndombele, in terms of ability, he looks like he could do anything with the ball. Looks like he can do things that no one else in the league can do. He was great in France, but as we know, that's not as competitive. I just think that potentially is this a fitness issue? I mean, Andrew there mentions his shape. He is a strange shape, but is that a fitness issue, or is that just
a strange
his shape?
But
they saw that when they were scouting him.
Look at Xherdan Shaqiri. He's shaped like a box. The footballers can be strange, and also he also is accused of not giving a shit. He's accused of having a lack of effort as well. So maybe it's a shape issue. I don't know. But you can see with Ndombele, he may well join Barcelona whenever the transfer window opens and be brilliant. And you kind of go in, well, what sort of went wrong? And in 3 years' time, he'll give an interview where he'll say that he couldn't get on with the food and he didn't like the weather or whatever. There'll be.
But do you buy that? Do you ever buy that? So I normally think it is purely because we have a very physical league, and largely that is pretty much it.
I think a lot of footballers have that, don't they? Where they come in after the first couple of games, they kind of go, "Oh my god, I've read about this and I've watched it," but actually being in the middle of that. Or looking at a league table and thinking, oh, well, we're playing Burnley, this will be all right. And then coming out the end of it as if you've been through sort of Vietnam or something. It's like, it is intensely physical and it's intensely fast. Yes, there's a great deal of skill in there as well. It's not the same when you play Man City. But then again, the speed that Man City play at, the speed that Liverpool play at, it must be quite shocking when you've been playing in France.
Yeah.
And so I do have sympathy with him. And the problem is he's also been playing for a Tottenham side who've had a season of two halves and they've both been shit. It's two managers have been pretty much awful there.
Yeah.
It's not a great environment to thrive, is it? It's
not at all.
Any new signing who comes into a club like that where there's two or three managers during a season, you look at Nicolas Pepe at Arsenal, written off as another sort of club record signing who's had a nightmare, but actually there have been moments from him that have looked great. And it's not
absolutely. I think
if the manager that signs you then gets sacked, what do you know?
Yeah, because there's been some wonderful players that, as I said at the top of this email, that some great players, better than Pepe or whoever, who had terrible starts. I mean, looking at this, David Silva, people forget he was hammered by fans and supporters of all clubs for the first season, probably longer than the first season. They said he was too small, he's not going to be able to hack it. David De Gea had a tough time. Drogba had a tough time. So if those guys can do that...
people like Drogba, who obviously became an absolute... And now, when you look back, think he's like the archetypal Premier League striker. Like, he should be what they should all be like. This
absolutely.
Sort of, the pace and the power and the finishing and absolutely everything in one player. And yet, initially, it looked like Mourinho had gone mad and spent a silly amount of money on this player. To look at even better players, you look at Dennis Bergkamp, when he arrived, this is Dennis Bergkamp. And there were back pages of, journalists having pictures of the goal mouth and saying, right, this is it, Dennis, aim for this, because he didn't score goals in his first, however.
Dennis Bergkamp.
And that's utterly ridiculous, isn't it? And, Thierry Henry, came and everyone said, oh, another flop, a French flop, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
With what is Wenger's blind spot with these Frenchmen. And, that... We are quick to write off. We all are, because we're all looking.
Well, it's fun to write about. It's fun to read about. That's why.
Of course, we talk about flops within 2 weeks of them starting, don't we? I mean, and the fun of that is you can go back and say you were wrong. But I think we might see Ndombele leave, and we might see him being absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, well, I think he might be brilliant anyway, even if he stays. Right, let's move on very quickly. Let's have some positivity to end the show. A couple of weeks ago, we did a shithouse 11. And I think I'd like you to pick 3 players that you think would make it into a good guys 11. Just 3 players, any position, doesn't really matter. Fire away, Sarah.
Good guys. I'm having Ben Foster in goal.
Yeah.
Loads easier to find lovely goalkeepers than it is to find shithouse keepers, which is obviously what we struggled with last time.
Yeah.
Lovely. You see, I want David Silva because I think he's lovely.
Have him. Have David Silva. Ben Foster, David Silva, and...
Oh, who's nice?
Shall I give you mine?
Oh, go on.
In mine has got to be Juan Mata. Great guy.
Oh.
Set up that charity for the 1%. He speaks all these languages, got a business degree, very kind, very lovely man.
Lovely
very
eyes.
Impressive. Lovely eyes. Kante as well. I'm putting Kante in as well. He just seems like a good guy. Yeah. Lovely big smile.
Never says anything. Never says anything wrong, does he? Him. He's just like at one time probably the best player in the Premier League, and was just kind of like, oh, this
Absolutely.
is nice.
This is nice, isn't it? One more. Come on.
Oh God, it's
Peter Crouch. I'm going to Peter Crouch.
Nice. Oh, there you go. Easy peasy.
Okay, that'll do. You can only think of 2. I got 3, so somehow, whatever it is, I've won. Get in touch with the show, though. Email us, the editor at football365.com. Let us know your thoughts, any ideas you've got about 11s or whatever it is. Do get in touch with the show. You are driving all the content here. We did have someone actually call us a pair of... what do they call us? They called us dumb, Sarah. Someone emailed said we were dumb.
That wasn't Professor Yeboah, was it?
No way. How dare you?
No, you see, I'll only listen to Professor Yeboah, so...
We got called dumb because we put Rivaldo in our shithouse 11. But the word dumb was misspelled. So try not to do that if you're going to slag us off. So we won that one as well. Right, Sarah, thank you very much for joining me again. This has been the Football 365 Isolation Show. Join us next week when we'll have some more guff.